I've got it. Okay, now it's open.
Perfect.
So what do I do? Do I open that?
It's okay. So if people want to ask you some questions or myself some questions, then it will just pop up on there, and we'll just see how many people are online now. It just may be that kind of Sunday morning, everybody's in bed or resting, but they'll get this later. So hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with Cheeky Bastard. Cheeky produces some really insightful videos on his channel, and I'm going to be posting the link to his channel. So I'd like to really urge everyone to get across to his channel, to watch his content, to subscribe to his channel. And today we're going to be addressing a topic which I know is very close to Cheeky Bastard's heart, and that is research rigor, peer review, SJWs, feminism, and really the challenges we have within MGTOW of getting the research that we know is available, getting it either published or being able to cite things. So, Cheeky Bastard, I'd like to maybe turn the conversation over to yourself at this point. And can you just give everyone, a bit of an introduction, possibly how you found, MGTOW, and why you've been so interested in this area of research rigor?
All right. Okay. Look, I would say that I've been MGTOW for going on 7 years now. I just recently found the group, or would you say community of MGTOW, 2 years ago. And from there on, I've sort of taken on the mantra of MGTOW, like a lot of guys have, because the community's very inviting for men, and we covered a lot of topics. And I found a lot of, honestly, in MGTOW, I found a lot of intelligent men to talk to, and I tell you what, that's hard to get. Believe it or not.
Agreed. And that's the beauty of MGTOW, that we do have a lot of very intellectually curious men. Now we may not have that curiosity in the same area, but there is a desire to learn, and I really appreciate that. But sorry for interrupting you. Please do go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'd been studying gynocentrism for actually 12 years. Okay. I'd started with after I got my first degree, and I found that when I wanted to start putting out videos on gynocentrism and the behavior and the interaction of men and women and what they contribute to this gynocentric culture, what I called the consequences of disenfranchising men. And then I went on to YouTube, and I've gone, okay, I better check if people have done things similar. And then power up come all these MGTOW channels, and I've gone, oh my God. And the MGTOW guys all saying exactly the same things that I had found out myself. So now I've just gone, geez, this must be a great group of guys, some intelligent group of guys, if they've actually come to these conclusions just from everyday observation. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the whole academic rigor thing, because I reckon MGTOWs have the potential to completely change our environment, and especially for other men who are probably going to be blue pill all their life. Their lives are going to be changed by what we do here. And the interesting facts are, at this point in time, academically, is in the legal system. As soon as the Chinese found that the birth rate was dropping, they got their scientists together and said, all right, what's going on? Well, how can we stop this? And you know what the first thing they did was?
What's that?
They abolished alimony.
Oh yes, absolutely, of course. And
now they're doing it. Sorry,
go ahead.
Now they're doing it in Britain. Now it's a legal precedent to be able to cancel alimony after what they call a sunset clause. So because women. There's nothing stopping them from getting a job now. This is what the judge said. there's nothing stopping them from getting a job now. And a lot of commentary on it that's not MGTOW. One of the things that one of the legal commentators said was he believed it came from the actual government to stop this alimony thing. And I think it's got to do with men going their own way.
I see. I mean, would you care to speculate the process by which that kind of takes place, or speculate on the process? Is it a case that these scientists are independently, I guess, reaching the conclusions that it's a legal system that is reducing the marriage rates, or that, you know, do you think, I mean, possibly some of them are watching, for example, your content, Stardust content, Coltane and Barbarossa's content?
Mm-hmm. Well, what scientists come to the conclusion is, why are men running from marriage? And it's pretty easy to find your way from there. Believe it or not, there was people actually studying gynocentrism before even I started, even before MGTOW existed. And they were looking into the same sort of problems. And one of those problems was disenfranchisement of men was keyed to the fact that men didn't want to get married because of the massive amount of liability, you know, a man had in a world that no longer needed those systems to be still in place. And I think governments have just come along and said, oh, geez, how can we make it more inviting for men to get married? Well, let's abolish alimony. That's the first and the easiest one to do, and that's where they've attacked it. So, yeah, as long as we stay the course, maybe we might not see men's freedom in our lifetime, but we certainly will see some changes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think it's important to point out again, and I know I always have the slight dig at the MRA, that's independence of Paul Elam campaigning on the side of a road somewhere. You know, so
yeah.
And I think Coltane's also pointed out that if we are to see change, it will come because, you know, these issues affecting men are now affecting society at large. So I guess one of the first things that I would love to delve upon, just kind of coming back to our topic, is
absolutely,
unfalsifiability. But because one of the areas that we rely on so heavily within MGTOW is, of course, evolutionary psychology. And, you know, it's kind of thrown at MGTOW that we're citing from fields which are quite simply unfalsifiable. So maybe my first question to you is that, I mean, number one, how would you respond to the unfalsifiability, you know, accusations, and to what extent can we make accurate predictions based on the data that we see from fields such as EvoPsych, for example, and psychology and the social sciences? All right,
you just said it. Actually, you just said it. It's a fact of predictability. When you don't have when you can't falsify something, it comes down to predictability. And this is what they came to. Proponents of Big Bang Theory said, look, we have all of these signs, all right, in the universe that something like this happened. You can't physically prove that the Big Bang happened, but you can predict the way things are going to behave, and the universe behaves like that. And the same thing with psychological sciences, especially EvoPsych, is actually rather rigid and is very predictable, along with cognitive science and cognitive chronometry. They're predictors. As soon as they stop predicting, they're no longer valid. But until that happens, they are valid conclusions. So you don't just have to unfalsify something. You have to actually prove that it can't be predictable. So when people say, well, you know, it's not falsifiable, and you go, well, it is predictive of society. Why are there herbivore men? If there was nothing, going wrong in this region. So we can predict things, well, by those theories.
Agreed. And what we've tended to see, for example, Barbaros has pointed this out as well, it's the consistency across cultures. We literally see the same thing. So again, we have mechanization. The first thing that happens as a result of mechanization is that you have a marriage decline simply because women can enter the workforce. So again, I do agree with you. And that accusation of unfalsifiability has been thrown around, and it's really, really sloppy. But because you're completely right, we do have the predictability, we do have the consistency across cultures, and we do have the consistency across time. And I would challenge these individuals, if they're going to say that we're relying on unfalsifiable data, then they should come up with better fitting theories. That I think the onus certainly is on them.
Well, they can't.
Oh,
see, this is the thing. They can't. And I challenge any of them, if they want to talk to me about it, come at me, because I'm ready for it all. It is absolute scientific rigor, this shit. As I said, I've been studying this for 12 years now, and it has predictors. And I tell you what, people from Japan don't have contact with very much with people outside of Japan. It's a homogeneic gene pool, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not multicultural, and they started walking away from marriage. Why? And when people say, "Well, geez, you can't," it's not rigorous. You can say, "Well, look, these are the symptoms. Now we're going to predict this." And what MGTOW right back in the day, because I went back in a lot of MGTOW's channels back to stuff what was really, really old, and they were predicting this movement away from alimony. And guess what happened? Countries are doing away with alimony, and India's actually thinking about doing that as well now.
Wow,
so
that would be
those
wonderful.
are predictives. Those are predictives. And I do have research that is actually biological research that's not one of these ones that are fluff. It's rather than psychology or anything like that, but actual rigorous studies that have looked at the biological that back up these characteristics in humanity and what the results are going to be. And one of those is Calhoun's experiments. I know it's with rats, but I call it the Calhoun Armageddon experiment, because what it does is it shows the total breakdown of society, and this is what we're seeing here. And I did answer that question. What was it? The unfalsibility one in Gynocentrism and hypergamy. I did that in a video called. Open it up. Where was it? Oh yeah, that's right. A response to Sagon discussing Gynocentrism with Spinosauruskin and ThinkingApe. If you look at that one, you'll find that I've actually provided a lot of medical research in that conclusion. So you can see that it's not just a unfalsifiable science at this stage. I tell you what, in psychology, 30% of studies come back as not being able to be replicated. And now when you go into social science, where the so-called feminism lives, you have 70% of articles being false.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, that's only 30% accurate prediction. And then you've got to come along to MGTOW and say, well, it's not, you can't really prove it now, can you? Well, yeah, this MGTOW theory has been 1 for 1, 1 for O. It's been straight down the middle. It's predicted what's going to happen and what is happening, whereas feminism and social science have no freaking idea. They're completely out of the park. It is based on opinions and observations, and those are always open to bias.
Of course.
And that's the biggest thing. So
I agree, and I think you've hit a huge issue there, because one of the, I guess, major crises, not only in the social sciences, but in the biomedical sciences, for example, where I happen to work, is the reproducibility crisis. So maybe in this part, maybe we can just talk a little bit about the peer review system. Now, in your opinion, is the peer review system, is it insurmountably flawed, or is it just simply in need of a bit of fixing?
Well, according to consensus of most scientists that have brought out a number of articles, and when I did have one here for everybody if they ever wanted to look up a really good one here, 15 common mistakes encountered in clinical research. We'll provide a link with that, I'd say, and with the others. And what it outlines is, that I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
The peer review say, that's right. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, okay. We go back to peer review system. They all say that it needs an overhaul. And what the problem is, mainly, is what they call popularity, and the other one is politics, the double Ps. And you can see how these break down the system so that new and contrary views don't get seen. One is because of politics, important research actually doesn't get printed in important journals where they get seen, number one. And the other one is, popularity.
Well, for example, I mean, just to kind of interject, I've been editor of multiple journals in oncology, hematology, pathology, and one of the things I found while being a journal editor is that the reviewers would often reject papers if they didn't cite enough of the reviewers' papers. And that I found incredible at the time. So, I mean, the chief standard of the review, of the peer review from the reviewer's point of view, wasn't the quality of the paper. It was, has this individual referenced my most important work? If they didn't, they would often reject the paper as, this author clearly doesn't know this field because they haven't referenced my work. And then
popularity.
Oh, absolutely. And then I would often, I think, just to give people an idea of the kind of inner workings of the peer review system, at least from what I found from running a peer review journal, which was multiple, which have been in PubMed, is that in most cases you wouldn't get, so when you send a reviewer a paper, so you would often send the paper to 3 or 4 different reviewers. 2 of them would come back to say, okay, I can review this. Then they would conduct the peer review, or maybe 3 of them would come back. Often, one of them would say, accept without, revision. One of them would say, reject the paper, it's total garbage and it's repetitive of the work in the area. And one of them would say, accept with major revisions. And you couldn't piece together everything they were saying, because one of them would be pointing out that the study, the data is incomplete, they need to do X, Y, Z, and one of them would be saying it's simply not worth publishing, and that was the norm. So even reviewers who were really experts in the field could never agree on what constituted a good bit of research. So what would often have to happen is that it would then come back to the editor, and who's a layperson in the field, and the editor would simply have to make a judgment call, and that judgment call wasn't then based on the quality of the paper. It was simply, is this on an interesting topic? So at the moment, if immunotherapy and let's say non-small cell lung cancer is really, really hot. How many papers do I have in immunotherapy? Can I send this edition of the publication out without an immunotherapy paper? If the answer is no, then I would simply have to send that article through, obviously asking that they make major revisions. So from my point of view as a journal's editor, the system was completely flawed because of the peer review system. I don't know if you've had similar experiences though.
Oh no, I've had the same thing happen to me. One was when I did my first one for ancient literature was anthropology, and what it was about was all of the matriarchies throughout all history, 150 something odd matriarchies who were leaders of countries, started wars, all of them. And when I tried to get this research published, no, it's against the paradigm. And that's what we were going to say. Was the second one was popularity. And what that's got to do with is the publisher comes along and he goes, that sounds boring. This sounds boring, and just throw them away. They know what sells, and they know that gender studies sells. So as long as it hasn't been submitted in crayon, they print it. I mean, it's really retarded stuff in there. I mean, God, that it really, honestly, children in kindergarten in gender studies class wrote their paper and put it in and they coloured within the lines. Oh, well, let's publish it. It's just freaking incredible. But, yeah, it comes down to popularity. Oh, yeah, we'll take every one of those. And, well, men's rights and, MGTOW theory. Well, honestly, those don't sell, so they're not going to get printed. And that brings us to that thing you were talking about. We really should start a journal because, honestly, there isn't a great deal of journals who are actually objective about this sort of stuff. And I think it's time. That's the best time right now because gender studies, feminism, and social justice have both actually been caught with their hands in the cookie jar. I'm going to do that in a upcoming video. 84 journal articles in gender studies and racism for social justice had to be recalled because they were falsified.
Wow.
The actual experiments didn't even happen. They just imagined it up. They made it all up. 84 of those were imaginary experiments.
Okay. And that is happening within the biomedical sciences as well. Some of the most highly cited papers are now being retracted in journals like Nature, and we're going to be covering that in just a bit. But I guess I have another question for you, which I think is on everyone's minds. Should peer review be our gold standard, or should we be aiming towards reproducibility, particularly in the social and the biomedical sciences?
You need both.
Okay.
No, well, yeah, because what you need a system whereby somebody's rewarded for pointing out somebody's false data. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And at the moment we don't in medical science. If you falsify a whole heap of medical papers that come out, you get massive funding. But you do that in psychology and they don't even notice.
I see.
So the people falsifying these things in psychology don't even, are doing it not for themselves, but just for the pure dedication to academic integrity. They're warriors, my friend. They do it for no reward. And I just wanted to point out as well for everybody who's watching right now, we're not talking about this subject because ThinkingApe covered it. Actually, I covered it in 2 videos, one 2 weeks before they did their one on academic peer review, and one what was 2 months before that. So if anybody's going eagerly on their keyboard going, plagiarizing. That's not exactly happening here. I just wanted to let everybody know that this was brought up beforehand. I know how on YouTube everybody plagiarizes everybody, so I can understand anybody thinking that. But as we get back to that peer review, it comes down to really a matter of data and the dedication for falsification. So if you were to start a journal that actually regularly printed articles where people have falsified somebody's conclusions, then you've already made a system whereby the majority of the problems with the peer review are actually a solution. They're actually finished. You've actually got a solution to the problem. And what the problem with the psychology journals are, they don't want to print articles on somebody falsifying a experiment because they want to look legitimate. You get what I mean?
Absolutely. But I also think there are a couple of other issues. I mean, just before I explain what those issues are, I want to point out that we're experiencing the exact same thing in the biomedical field. So a team, for example, from Bayer in 2011, and I'll be posting the link in the chat window, try to reproduce some of the most important biomedical publications of all time in an industrial lab. So they took research that regular researchers in private and academic labs and then brought them to a Bayer pharmaceutical industrial lab. And they found they only had results in line with the original studies about 20 to 25% of the time. So a good 75 to 80% of the time, these results could not be reproduced. And that is a huge reproducibility crisis.
My God.
And this is within medicine. So within the, I guess, social sciences, it's a case of using, so a lot of the information published is used to justify, rape shield laws and yes means yes laws. But in the medical sciences,
good point.
Absolutely. So we're doctors, for example, Nico Chosky, and they're basing clinical decision making, of course, on the available evidence. And where the available evidence cannot be reproduced, to what extent does a doctor then feel comfortable with making clinical decisions on that basis? So just before we kind of go further, I'm going to post that link there. And then the second thing which I maybe want to discuss within the context is the economics of reproducibility. And what I mean by that is this. Currently in the United States, 28 billion is spent on oncology research alone every single year. That's a tremendous amount of money publicly funded by the government. Now,
I'll just.
Oh, sorry. Please,
sorry, keep going. I was just going to say, well, in psychology, that sort of, I don't think they spent that much money in the last 25 years of paying for other researchers like psychology and stuff like that. I mean, for real. That's a lot of money just to give everybody an idea. I mean, for just that amount of money, I don't think that amount of money has been spent all around the world on other research.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, some of the issues they face, for example, I mean, with reproducibility, it's things such as, sloppy data analysis, contaminated lab materials, poor experimental design. And we're going to be discussing design features. How do you spot good research a little bit later on? So guys, please do stay tuned. Right. We're going to be having an amazing discussion today. But if you can imagine that, from the get-go, we're spending 28 billion just in oncology research by the US government. Reproducing these studies will cost us at least another 28 billion, particularly because reproduction takes place in an industrial lab. Do we have, what is it, 56 odd billion to spare, basically? And that is, I guess, another issue of reproducibility. Can we financially afford it? I would love to get your opinion on that as an academic.
Yeah. As I said, in most medical fields, falsification means you get more funding, but a lot of others don't get that. And a lot of them put the whole bill themselves just to falsify something that's come up, what's wrong. And that's why I believe research needs to literally have a journal of falsified articles, because yeah, have a look at that PubMed place, how much money they make off of the blood, sweat and tears of other people. If that money was going back to, at least some of that money was going back to researchers for falsification, I think we could curb at least a little bit of it. And I think, yeah, we definitely need a journal of falsibility. And I think, because, there's just no way of getting money for that sort of thing. And nobody gets prestige from it, especially in some fields. They just don't get any prestige for falsifying something. And that's where the problem is. And I know that they're never going to, without some sort of a real convincing, ever pay any money out or give you a grant for money to cover things that are important to men, and even more to MGTOW.
Agreed. I mean, if, for example, a researcher submits, a grant request saying, look, I need, £500,000 to conduct this research. And then, by the way, I'll also need another £500,000 to give to another lab so that they can, essentially conduct a reproducibility study. I believe that will be rejected out of hand.
Oh, absolutely. They're not going to spend extra money. That's
Exactly.
why it needs to be public, not public, private. That's why I say we need things like that, journals that will print and reimburse money back to people who put their money on the line to falsify things. And it's the reason why we have feminism right now, is because feminism sells and feminism is funded. My God.
Oh, yes, they receive an extraordinary amount of money, considering how little they actually contribute to society. I mean, this isn't cancer research or, neuro studies. It's just an obscure, dogma, and they receive an extraordinary amount of money.
Well, yeah, what if they will spend $600,000, right, for somebody to explore the fact that ice glaciers are sexist, right? And they won't even spend $1 in a legal research to see if men are actually getting the weak end of the stick. You know what I mean?
For sure, absolutely.
They haven't even spent $1 on it, mind you. Men's lives are being destroyed, and they don't spend any money. But once it comes to a woman, my God, they throw $600 at her. Another one got $700,000 for writing an article on why girls like vampire books and movies. My God, that wouldn't even take $10, my friend. That'd probably
I can tell them that for free because there's a good-looking lead actor.
Yeah, but when you think about it, they could have gone, oh, here's a credit card, it's got $100 on it, go down to the bookstore, oh no, here have $800, $800,000, here you go.
Exactly.
Because men don't add to this gynocentrism at all, do they? Exactly. Oh yeah, holy father eyes. Oh, she looks all right. Yeah, let's give her a couple $100,000. What were you doing again? Finding out if air conditioning is sexist? Yeah, here you go. She was a good looker, wasn't she? Well, that's kind of what happens.
I guess the other questions that I had for you, I mean, it's really a two-part question. The first part is, does the peer review improve the quality of papers? And then secondly, does the peer review system help us select better papers? Because I think that's part of the heart of the crisis of peer review, isn't it? Are we selecting better papers because of the peer review, or is it a case that it's? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a no to both, because see, what they consider a peer could basically be anybody. As I pointed out in my video, Vampire Girl and Sexist Glacier Girl and Air-Conditioned Sexist Glacier Girl, they are the peers to review gender issue papers. And if they have that little common sense to start off with, how are they going to have any actual academic ability to actually approve an article? None at all.
Agreed. Absolutely.
None at all.
Absolutely.
That's why they have to be passed around to people who are not in that field even.
Agreed. So maybe this kind of leads us on to when we cite articles within MGTOW, and this is a discussion, I guess, for MGTOW, but also it's important to just the wider society out there. How do we spot well-designed research? What's the importance of, for example, the p-value? How do we spot results that flow objectively from the data? What are the characteristics of poorly designed research and conclusions not, kind of drawn from the data? Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. We've got at least three key areas. One is in the methodology. One, is it actually measuring what it's meant to? Because a lot of time it doesn't. Okay, let's go into an example. There was 3 articles cited by Anita Sarkeesian to support her sexist game theory.
Okay.
These 3 articles, I did go into my video where you can, what was called the overarching academic fact that critics of Anita Sarkeesian overlooked response to Thunderfoot, and that was that all 3 articles did not measure what they said they would. All right, what they got was a certain amount of guys come along, and a certain amount of girls come along, play computer games that were strictly sexual, like games that give you rewards for having sex and better sex. And then they would let them come out and intermingle, right? And they said, look, there's more sexual activity in the group. Oh, yeah, games make people sexist. But, yeah, I could do exactly the same study myself and get women to watch porn and men to watch porn. Then let them mingle and see what happened. Can you see where I'm going?
Absolutely.
What do you think has been actually measured? What's been measured? Sexual arousal, not sexism at all.
Exactly.
I mean, all 3 of these were printed. My God, they were printed, all 3 of them.
So I guess the very first thing is that the thing being measured needs to actually be the basis of the research.
Yep. I'll tell you, the greatest weaknesses of feminist theories, and if you want to tear them up, the quickest place you go to, 1, methodology, then the way they collected the information. Okay. That's number 2, because that's where all the bias happens. Now, we'll go into surveys. How about that? To give us a bit of variety, you'll find in feminist surveys, and they'll go out to the public. We got so many of these and so many of that. It looks all good in the methodology, and then when you actually ask, "Hey, can you show me the questions of the survey?" A lot of them try to say no, but you say you're legally allowed to ask for it.
Yes.
They can be charged if they don't. And what's come back to me a lot of the time is things like this. Do you believe that you had unwanted sexual contact, like a kiss on the cheek and a grab on the butt, and they go, oh, well, I've had a grab on the butt, and they go yes to that, and they go, okay, so they now categorize a kiss on the face as sexual harassment.
Absolutely, and I've seen them do that as well. So I guess two quick questions just before we go forward.
There's just one more.
Okay,
there's one more I've actually come across.
Okay.
And the other one is, another one is, okay, we're seeing how anti-feminist people are. Yeah. So, and one of their questions is, do you dislike feminism and puppies? And they go, well, I can't say I don't like puppies. Oh, well, everybody thinks feminism's great. Yeah, it has nothing to do with puppies on the end. And they actually literally do that. It's a binomial question. It's a segmented one. And I'll add 2 or 3 questions stringed together. If anybody's actually seen that How Sexist Are You questionnaire, okay. Read those questions. Read those questions. Oh, should women be protected by men and loved by them? What? If I agree to one, I have to agree the other. Do I not?
For sure. It's a really, really kind of loaded question, and I've seen that in a lot of feminist research that the questions are loaded. So I guess just 2 quick questions. Staying Alive has asked, how do you survive in the academic world without becoming a feminist?
Very hard. In the end, I held out for 5 years before they got fired. Yeah. What happened was, as soon as I said I wasn't a feminist and I wasn't going to become a feminist in the feminist field, they started only passing me, and I started passing on my assignments and stuff to other people.
Okay.
In related fields and stuff, and sent them away, got them to write back and sign what they thought of it. And in the end, it comes out that literally because I didn't demonstrate a willingness to be on their side of theory, they believed that men had no business being in psychology because women are the nurturing ones. My God, can you believe the arrogance of this shit?
Yeah,
that 5 of them end up getting fired in the end, but they never gave me back the points, for all the passes I got when I should have got distinctions. But anyway, to get through it all, just don't tell them anything. Just when you get into this field, just look at other people's work. Don't just believe the lectures. I don't even go to lectures because they are wholly biased for that reason. Get me?
Absolutely.
That's how you survive.
Absolutely. So I guess another question that I had for you, which Nico Chosky has brought up in the comments section, is the importance of the p-value. I remember, for example, when I was involved in my master's, pretty much we were just told, look at the p-value. If it's lower than 0.05, you're good. And that means, of course, that if you conducted this experiment randomly and less than 5 times out of 100, you would expect to receive the same results. So, yes. I mean, can we simply use the p-value alone to determine if a study is, statistically significant?
No, you have to look at it from other positions. Like, I would suggest to anybody, instead of just going for a p-value, go for a full ANOVA. Okay. And and there's lots of ANOVAs, so you can go nuts in that field. Probably one of the most significant situations that we have had with the p-value recently is a lot of MGTOWs took up a study from China what said women had more orgasms with richer men from China.
I've cited that one. I think, yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they used stepwise in it, what was incorrect. What actually pushed the p-value, higher than what it was meant to be. Is that correct? Yeah. Anyway, so actually, when they redid it and they ran the regression, they found that they were just under a significant level. So
was that due to sample size? I mean, so because obviously, I mean, the first thing is that we have to have a large
sample size. With sample size, the larger the sample size, the more chance you're going to get a significant result, and that's where error variances come in. And what I've seen in social sciences stuff, they don't even take these things into consideration. It's very, very, very sloppy work. I bet you Nico would know and have seen that before, especially in psychology and social science. Sometimes anthropology, if they're scientific enough. But you do see that. You need your error variances. You need to read your book. You know what I mean? Before you start doing these things, I've actually got mine right here.
That's one of the things that I noticed, for example, because a lot of the data that we cite, but particularly coming from the social sciences, it's based on some kind of a linear regression model, and the authors often don't understand. I've seen the importance of things like the R-squared value. So that's completely neglected from the discussion. A measure of how good a fit is this.
That's the right word. That's the good a fit. That's what's important.
Exactly.
And you'll see linear regressions where they'll say it's correlated 0 and 0.001. It's so good. And then you get their data and you put it into your PSAW and you go run it through. Okay, let's have a look at the scatter plot. Oh my God. And it's all over the map.
Well, I've seen that as well, actually.
And the whole thing's covered, there's equal squares. So
exactly.
The squares are equal all over the whole data set. So therefore, every single dot's got a relationship almost 0 because the data points are everywhere. They're at the most extreme this end, they're at the most extreme that end, and they're all the same amount in the middle.
Exactly.
So error variances, people.
Sorry. Absolutely. Because I guess what we're saying is that the model needs to explain the variability of the response data around the mean, right? So if we get an R-squared value, which is simply so high, it's, again, this is what I often see, like the first thing people will do, but again, in the social sciences is, and I've seen this actually in the kind of biomedical sciences as well, is that they'll immediately look for the regression instead of first looking for the overall data and then seeing, is there something other than, for example, a linear regression here? Because not having a linear regression doesn't suggest that we don't have a relationship there with the data. It just suggests that it's not a linear relationship. So we can still have a valid one.
That is an answerable question. A very if they don't have a plot of any kind with their regression, then you might as well burn it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
you might as well burn it, because I see binomial distributions come up as as strong relationship. Oh yeah, in 2 points, one at the top, one at the bottom. If you don't see a scatter plot, burn it.
Exactly.
Or if they don't give you a scatter point, burn it. Don't go for the R-squared in the paper, because people lie.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Everybody lies.
But also, what I've seen researchers do, and this has come out a couple of times, but also, for example, when I was involved in my master's, and I, they would just remove outliers till they got a fit, and
yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens all the time. Until they get a fit, they'll just keep on. Well, and then it's it's a self-selected thing. Okay, I consider this an outlier because it doesn't fit with my hypothesis, basically.
Massaging data is one of the things that comes up in that 12.1.
Yeah.
So, Nico, if you'd probably be able to read that and understand that, mate. You'll love that paper. It's 12 mistakes. 15 common mistakes in clinical analysis. Fantastic read, that one, and it'll tell you how to sniff out bullshit. And I'll tell you what, in psychology, they will massage the data until they get something. You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Also in the biomedical sciences as well. I mean, nature is
really?
At the moment, yeah, absolutely. We've had all sorts of shenanigans where researchers simply don't conduct experiments. They leave out, study participants who don't fit their data. They tell, that so it's supposed to be randomized, but the patients know if they're getting a placebo or not. I mean, we've had all sorts of shenanigans, and that now they're having to withdraw paper. And some of these are the most highly cited papers, and it's a major problem. So I guess, in let's say building a repository of MGTOW knowledge, should we be looking to, at one point put together our own data, or can we rely on the publications out there to essentially guide us in terms of the kind of talking points and the conclusions we're arriving at? What's your position there? Do we build our own, or is there enough out?
There is enough out there.
Okay.
There's definitely, because you can find a related paper and you just ask them, hey, man, can I have your data? Because you have to do that by law. Okay. And they can send you that data. And their analysis might have been the relationship between urinary output for, size of kidneys or nephrons. Or even better, the size of, say, the parietal lobe in females to men. You find a study what says, okay, what we did was we saw how big the parietal lobe was in taxi drivers. Ask them for their data, and then when they get their data, do it by gender then. Get a sample of the males and the sample of the females in the data set, run it through your program, and then you've just created a gendered analysis of existing data.
Ah, that's fantastic, actually. That's absolutely excellent. And then we could then look at issues. I guess there are two things that I would love you to kind of address. One is a quick question by Overman, and he's pointed out errors and outliers are actually valuable in science. I completely agree. So, I mean, should we be analyzing outliers separately as a separate part of the data, or should, in your opinion?
In my opinion, is if you have an outlier which is so far way out there and it's only one guy on his own, what you do is you take him out of your analysis, but you leave him into your in your documentation. Yes. In the methodology section, I took out one outlier, blah, 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 here because of this reason, and then the reader can go, that's reasonable. And then, that way you've been completely honest about your outliers. And, you want to keep as many in together as you want, as you can, because you might have binomial distributions and things like that, where it would bring an outlier into the spectrum of your analysis if you were to figure out the factor what's making the binomial distribution. If you can find that factor, that outlier may be able to be added back into your analysis then, or somebody else can do it.
Agreed. No, that's hugely important. And then the second question that I had related to... Oh, sorry. In fact, I've just completely lost my train of thought.
I've done that.
I apologize, guys. I've just finished my first cup of coffee, and I think that was actually a very bad idea. Okay, so I mean, we've covered the issue of outliers, of the issues of poorly designed research. So how do we critique? In fact, just before because you've talked about the methodology a lot, and one of the things that I've kind of always been a big fan of is a randomized study. Is that what we should be aiming for within MGTOW? I don't mean conducting our own randomized studies, but should we only be citing from randomized studies? Are single-arm studies or observational studies, or just meta-analysis? Are those valid as well? Or if it's not randomized and placebo-controlled, basically, should we just kind of forget about citing it?
Well, I went through it in my statistical classes. I had to do goddamn 3 of them. It was horrific. But samples, like people, I did in the analysis of Sagon and Spinosauruskin. They both go, oh, well, how can that be representative of women who are looking for men if it comes from a dating site? Well, what better data set would you use? The one where people are confronted with, what do you like in a man in the street? Or one where they just put on a computer relatively anonymously in a data sample that you need. It's already made for you. The dating site's there. Take that data set, you use it because it's going to have the least amount of bias.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. In fact, I think you brought up something really, really important there, because Spinosauruskin and Sagon were having a go at Coltane. They how can you rely on OkCupid data? And it was like, well, this is possibly the best data we have for female sexual preferences, simply because they're in their natural environment. They're simply following their kind of basic biological urges. So we get to really observe them in that environment, as opposed to saying, and then later on in the video, he said, well, women say it to me all the time. He wants
I covered that.
he wants to now have somebody younger and hotter, and it's like, well, actually,
no, he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly, because women most of the
he's going to get a lot of hot, yummy young girls just throwing themselves at him while he's sleeping on a park bench.
Exactly, and he's just been divorce raped, and now he's lost all of his money and seeing his kids on the weekend. Of course, absolutely.
I got my hot chicks, man. There's a cat woman over there, and there's a woman without teeth over there. Oh, geez, I've got options. Yeah, right. Fuck me. But it takes a really special kind of vidtard, honestly, on YouTube to say, geez, Cupid data isn't representative of women who are looking for men. Oh my God, do you hear what you're saying?
Well, I think
or are you just looking for something, or you're just trying to grab for straws because you want to justify some kind of weird-ass mindset? All men like young women, and they will get young women if they possibly can. But I tell you what, most men, they have no way of doing that, especially in the modern era. If they're a billionaire, like God knows one of the celebrities, and they split up, there's no big deal. He can afford it. But the everyday guy, it's not going to come along and throw away his children, his marriage, his house, just so someone else can live in his house while he pays for it all, just so he can have a younger woman.
Exactly.
You see the stupidity. There's no logic to this, none at all. And that's why I came out of the gates bolting for academic integrity.
Of course,
because people what have huge followings are saying the most retarded shit I have ever heard in my life. I suppose if they were actually good scientists or anybody of note or any kind of being sensible, they probably wouldn't be on YouTube saying these things. But doing these things, that'll be out writing papers, wouldn't they?
Exactly. And again, maybe it's something that I should point out. I've speculated that Spinosauruskin is not particularly bright. Just through interaction with the kid. And again, I don't consider that a bad thing. It's when he then tries to, hypergamy don't real, yo. Then I do take exception.
Well, I actually did put a good case forward, academically and medically, as well as biosocially, and evolutionary psychology papers altogether to show that hypergamy exists. I can actually, I can almost, if I close my eyes and put a pin in my hand, put the tail on the donkey when it comes to biological impulses and the gene for women. Straight down the line, man, I could publish that shit. I actually went through it all in that Sagon response.
Of course. It's a really, really good video, and I'll be posting the link on my channel as well. So so from your point of view, I mean, what's the way forward for us now in MGTOW with regards to content? Is it taking, as you pointed out earlier, existing content, passing it along gender lines, redoing the analysis and seeing what data we get from that? Is that the kind of way forward? I'd love to get your opinions there.
Absolutely. The best thing is research methods, actually, because you'll find that there's stuff out there already back up your conclusion. To be honest, there is stuff out there. I've got heaps of it. I just got no way to share it. So, yeah, because as I said, 12 years, gynocentrism, that's all I've been doing in my spare time. Okay. And I've got a lot of stuff. And that's why I say we need a sharing thing. And if MGTOW's to go ahead with their theories and actually make it academic and improve the quality of content out there for content producers who aren't academic, the best way we can do that is share information on a website somewhere, that someone can read a paper. Everyday MGTOW can come up, he can read a paper that someone's written, look at the references, find those references for himself, reference those into his video material, and all of a sudden the quality of sensible content goes through the roof.
Agreed.
Instantly, people just hear things from from Stardust, and they hear what he says, but they don't quite get the science behind it, and they will run with that. And by the time it ends up getting whispered from one MGTOW channel to the next, it doesn't quite actually even relate to the original issue that Stardust brought up. You know what I mean? The integrity is gone. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with saying, just reciting things over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Okay. No, I understand.
That's why we stagnated. Okay. I think that's why MGTOW's kind of stagnated in one spot where the same content's coming out, over and over again. And unfortunately, we need more collaboration. No, that's it. No, that's where we go forward, is in collaboration. We need a website of academic collaboration.
For sure. And actually, just on that vein, I would like to give a huge shout out to the new site, MGTOW.co. If everyone has Alexander's contact details, I believe there's a link on Nico's channel. I'll also be posting a link there as well to get in touch with him to join MGTOW.co. It's a fantastic new resource. SJW free. It's really, really excellent. I'm there every single day. So's Nico. So you cheeky bastard. And we're having some great discussions there. You don't.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
fantastic.
Really,
I mean, really good, really fantastic stuff. Everybody's is offering something on that site. It's fantastic that way.
Absolutely.
And, I have found that it doesn't really work on, Google Chrome. So, yeah, don't fret if it doesn't work the first time. If you've got Chrome, people, because I use some others and I get on there just fine. But we do need a place, network, or within that site or somewhere where we can actually share information, like actual documentation. Oh, here's my idea. What do you think of it?
Exactly. And Staying Alive has just really asked a superb. We have a Thinking Ape Stardust with us, and he's asked, cheeky bastard, do you fear funnel web spiders, taipans, brown snakes, and redbacks?
None of the above. No. It's Australia, man. We're born with those. There's in our cribs. Nah, but I don't fear them. I've got about 4 species of deadly spiders just living around my garden shed. I'm serious. One of them the majority of them can kill you.
Do you wear snake protective boots or something when you go out? Because
no, I don't worry about it. I don't know. Maybe you just grow eyes in the back of your head in Australia, because everything's trying to kill you here, even the other people.
Okay, because for example, I'm getting my place built in Nigeria, and one of the first things I did was that I have a pair of snake chaps, because Nigeria is basically infested. We just have so many snakes, and I got some snake protective boots. But so you don't fear taipan? Taipans are some of the most aggressive snakes.
Actually, the brown snake in Australia is the most aggressive out of all of them. Okay. It will chase you for miles. I had to outrun one, and thank God I had a bicycle. I swear to God,
it chased you on a bike.
It was so close to. I jumped on the bike and I just started pedaling, and I'm just starting to get the speed up, and it goes chunk, and he bites the wheel of the bicycle. I'm going, what the fuck? They never told me they could go that fast.
It's your
brown snakes are dangerous. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, and they can catch you on a bicycle.
Yeah, it's because of your anti-feminist content, man. It serves you right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, plenty of venom out there for me. I'll take it. Come on, bring it on, ladies, gentlemen, bring it all on.
For sure. I've really enjoyed our discussion, and again, I think the data that we cite is incredibly important if we're going to be taken seriously, and also if we're going to be able to make accurate observations of the phenomena that we come across.
Well, think about it this way as well. In psychology, a lot of theories, like in international relations, such as realism and things like that, and other psychological concepts, they're still going because the fact that they predict. So therefore, we have been living the last 120 years on a theory that cannot be disproven, and we eat it up every single day. We make decisions on it. We make military decisions on those bases alone, on something that has only evidence of observation but has really strong in prediction. And that's where MGTOW should focus themselves. If it's a predictive thing, it will be taken serious in the academic world, in the scientific world. Anybody who has half a brain will. They most certainly will. If you can predict something, you've got it. And that's the other thing, developmental psychology and developmental babies, other theories on developmental periods. Some of them have been updated, but they're still working on the same premises because they are predictive.
Of course. And Staying Alive has just asked, how can undergraduates, or should they express their question in brackets, is there a real risk of alienation in questioning feminist legal theory?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. There's one woman out there, the biggest taipan of them all, is a woman called Kos. it's a POS at the CDC, and she was the one who pushed through. She introduced what was it? The the domestic violence one. What was that called?
Oh yes, was it the Duluth model?
Duluth model. Yeah, she was one who pushed the Duluth model on top of her research. And this is a funny thing. She was basically came before a tribunal on her academic study that she supported the Duluth model on, for this one reason, that
Hey, Cheeky, are you there? Hello, Cheeky?
Victim of domestic violence as being all male.
Yes. Can you repeat that bit, because I lost you for about
in lesbian relationships.
Yeah, I lost you for about 30 seconds there.
Yep, I'm losing you now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I can hear you now, but I lost you there for a sec.
Well, what I'll do, I'll recover that.
Okay.
She supported the Duluth model for America on research that she did on domestic violence, where she put every single woman who had ever been a victim of domestic violence into the men's population sample. She just said, if any woman has been a victim of domestic violence, they were victims of men. And it turned out that she, I would say, deliberately left out the fact that the majority of these women were either were lesbians or in a lesbian relationship or had been in a lesbian relationship. So basically, she was lumping in lesbian domestic violence victims in, and putting it on men in the men's category to pad out how many women were getting, beaten by men. And she got away with it after it was 15 years worth of deception. She did the same thing for 15 years in the CDC, being one of the chief heads of the CDC. She did this for 15 years. She put lesbian domestic violence and equated it to men to pad out the domestic violence to make men look bad. And when this was pointed out, they put together a tribunal, as they should have done. But she just said, "Oh, I didn't realize." And because she's a woman, she's still got a job. But for 15 years, she was accusing men of domestic violence against lesbians. Their shit's coming unraveled, I'm telling you.
Sure.
See, so yeah, the men's rights activist quotient of the manosphere does have its uses. Personally, I feel the men's rights advocates, if they were to take a MGTOW stance on things, an active stance on things instead of a passive stance, they will get a lot further. What I mean by that, instead of bending over for feminism all the time and begging men for, please give our rights back, instead of begging for them, men should just demand them. You get me?
Absolutely. No, I do agree with you there.
Men don't beg. Men don't beg. That's their problem.
Exactly.
They look weak because they beg. Don't beg, demand.
Exactly.
And I think that's what MGTOW's doing. They're the ones actually sawing the wood at the moment. And that's why people are taking. That's why people are taking. The governments are taking more. They're paying more attention to MGTOW and getting rid of alimony because of MGTOW, because of men walking away from marriage. It was an action. We didn't beg the government to take away alimony. We just said we're not going to marry.
Exactly.
F you.
Exactly.
And
I agree.
That's when they listened. Was it not? Everybody.
Exactly. So just in wrapping it up, I would like to encourage everyone to subscribe to Cheeky Bastard's channel. Really, really excellent content. It kind of reminds me of Razor Blade Candy stuff, which is...
oh, man, thanks.
And so I'll be posting the links, and thank you very, very much for joining, and I wish everyone a really, really enjoyable Sunday. Do you have any final words to say, Cheeky?
Keep it up, guys. Yeah, and never lose hope. Never. Things change so fast, and feminists are being proven to be dishonest so many times, even academically, that credibility can only go in your favor. Start thinking, gentlemen. Start putting your stuff together, because it works and it matters. Have a good night.
Thanks so much.